The VAT increase has been retracted, but VAT may still go up on the 1st of May. Confused? We're going to fix that on this show. But I have to tell you, there is so much to talk about today. Eric, have you ever seen me make notes?
For this show? No.
Ever. I never make notes. I just plan in my head. That might be something that you want to give me feedback on. But I actually wrote down everything that we need to cover today. Okay, so this is what we're going to do. What just happened? Why did it happen? Will there still be a VAT increase on the 1st of May? Who won? Like, who do we credit for the VAT increase being retracted? Will the finance minister now resign? I think we know the answer to all of them, actually. Not to get too ahead of myself, but there's a lot to talk about. Okay. Eric, let's go. Okay.
Let's do it.
What just happened? Well, very late last night, news media started to report on, and then Treasury and political parties made the announcement that the finance minister and Treasury was going to retract the VAT increase of 0.5%, basically all products except for some exemptions, all products and services, to 15.5% total on the 1st of May. Now, unless you've been living under a rock the size of Brakpan, you already know that VAT was supposed to go up by 2% in February, and because of the, I think in hindsight, it's fair to say, God-blessed, hero-done work of the Democratic Alliance, that 2% VAT increase did not happen, because if the DA hadn't withheld their support on that day when the budget speech was supposed to happen, we would have got a 2% VAT increase. Then the government revised down, or Treasury revised down to ultimately 0.5 in the first year and probably 0.5 increase in the second year. There's been endless fighting about it. You already know that Action SA put through the proposal to pass the fiscal framework, and they claimed that that had thwarted VAT when it clearly hadn't. But nonetheless, they and a bunch of smaller political parties who today are pretending that they thwarted the VAT increase, going to talk about that in a second, they all voted through the budget with the VAT increase in Parliament. And then they all said, no. No, oh no, as they realized their mistake. Then the DA and EFF took the whole fiscal framework procedure to court, and some legal experts said it wouldn't make any difference, and others now say that it has made some kind of difference. So here's where we are. The finance minister and his team announced that they are going to withdraw the VAT increase of 0.5%. ANC leadership spoke on the whole government's behalf, but did a lot of work to distance themselves from Treasury. In fact, they were speaking as though they were one of the many aggrieved parties who was anti the VAT increase, and they basically threw Treasury and the finance minister under the bus. Fikile Mbalula did that explicitly just now. So there is now a media briefing happening, and all the different leaders of the different GNU parties, except the DA, who were never invited, are speaking. So for all we know, by the time you watch this, Enoch Godongwana, finance minister, would have resigned. But Eric is going to be keeping an eye on all of the breaking quotes from all the different leaders. Herman Mashaba just spoke, the IFP just spoke, as we record.
Yep.
Why did this happen is a key question. Now, The Times has been doing a fantastic reporting in the last 24 to 48 hours, and generally one turns to the Sunday Times, or you may know them as Times Live, to find out what's going on, particularly within the African National Congress. They probably have the best sources that generally turn out to be right. And the Times has reported a bunch of things. Firstly, that many ANC insiders believe that the pressure that caused the finance minister, Enoch Godongwana, to back down, basically, came from internal ANC political dynamics. You may remember us reporting all those months ago about the political spin that happened immediately after the 2% VAT increase was thwarted, of different ministers, like I think Electricity Minister Ramakgopa was one of them. Even at the time, there were sources saying that the ANC ministers were as blindsided as the rest of the political parties were, the other ones, by the finance minister's move, and they didn't know and they were against it. There's already been spin for months to make it look like this is the Treasury acting on its own and not representative of the ANC, to try and limit damage to the ANC's reputation, even as the ANC's finance minister has doubled down on and insisted on this absolutely historically unpopular potential VAT increase that would have particularly hammered poorer South Africans, as again we've covered extensively on this show. So that could be one reason, ANC internal party politics. But the other reason why this almost certainly just happened, and this was quoted from other ANC insiders, is that right now there is a court case going on that, again, we've reported on, involving the Democratic Alliance Council representatives and the Economic Freedom Fighters Council representatives to try and declare the Fiscal Framework Committee that passed the fiscal framework procedurally unlawful, basically to say that they did it wrong and so it should be voided and done over. And sources within the ANC speaking to the Times said that the finance minister was basically watching this, and it is possible that he got to the end of watching these proceedings and the Treasury participating in these proceedings and thought, we're probably going to lose, and that would look horrible. It would look really bad for us. So let's just retract it first so that when we lose the court case or there's an out-of-court settlement, we can sell it as, oh, but we were going to fix it anyway. A desperate attempt to, at the last second, save face. And that, as we'll get onto in a second, genuinely might be the best hope that South Africa has for not getting a 0.5% VAT increase anyway on the 1st of May, even as they try to retract or withdraw it. But this looks like, it really does look like the DA and the EFF's combined efforts in that court case could have swung the needle. Okay, so will there still be a VAT increase on the 1st of May? Well, I hate to break it to you. Yes, Eric?
Well, I was going to say Mashaba says no.
Mashaba has just said no.
Mashaba has just said no.
Okay, so let me tell you.
Can I quote? Can I read you a quote?
Go.
Right. When South Africans wake up on the 1st of May 2025, Workers' Day, they will pay the same for their goods and services as they did the day before. This is what Action SA promised from day one, and it is exactly what this collective here today has delivered.
Aha. Okay, well, let me tell you what tax law experts have to say, not Herman Mashaba, because maybe he's right. But here's the reality. In order to undo the fiscal framework which has created a 0.5% VAT increase for the 1st of May, which I'll remind you is in 7 days, 8 days? It's next Thursday. In order to undo that, a pretty extraordinary series of legislative and legal processes have to be undergone in Parliament. And by most experts' reckoning, they literally don't have enough time. It's too late. Now, maybe Mashaba knows something we don't, and somehow they're going to be able to generate all of this political and legal participation. But the vast majority of in-the-know experts reckon there's literally not enough time to undo the potential damage that has already been done through passing and then voting for that fiscal framework. So maybe Mashaba's right, but it is very possible that South Africans get a VAT increase, and we are all VAT taxed 15.5% for a month or two before all of this has been undone. And I'm going to get into a second, but not rectified. It's not like we're all going to get our money back if we lose a little bit of extra money, 0.5% more in, say, May and June. And quite a few tax experts believe that it could take longer than a month. So we'll see whether Mashaba is right or not. But many tax experts believe that it is more likely that we will get a VAT increase on the 1st of May, and then that 0.5% increase will be retracted later, but we're not going to get our money back for that interleading period. And that's because VAT, unlike other kinds of taxes, is incredibly hard to measure. So firstly, there's indirect tax. When you go to the store and you buy a product that's had a 0.5% increase of VAT on it, you're going to pay more for that product. And there is no way the government can go back and say, well, Sheila bought 7 nappies, 6 apples, and 5 bananas, and there was 0.5% on all of those, so Sheila's going to get some money back in her bank account. There's no way that's going to happen. But secondly, different companies measure their inventories and how much they pay tax every month, or every quarter, or every year. There's no practical way that the government or SARS or Treasury or anybody in the financial sector of South Africa's public services can go to each business and reliably figure out how much of a reimbursement they deserve. That's just beyond the practical bounds of what can be done.
Well, that's what I was going to say. I mean, if you think about all the goods and services that have been sending us SMSs over the last while,
Dude.
Like, how are they going to... They've probably made all the calculations they need to make. They've probably adjusted things that they need to do, right? How are they going to undo this in a week?
Because the key thing to understand is saying that they're going to retract the VAT increase does not retract the VAT increase. They're just PR telling us what they're going to do, but they may not be able to get it done in time. But maybe what Mashaba means is that he thinks the DA and EFF are going to win the court case. This, according to most tax law experts, is the only prospect for success of thwarting a VAT increase on the 1st of May. And I will remind you that 3-4 weeks ago, however long ago it was, when Action SA passed the fiscal framework through their proposal, and then they suddenly realized that they'd not thwarted the VAT. What did we say on this show, Eric? What did I say repeatedly? I repeatedly said that Herman Mashaba and Michael Beaumont and all of Action SA is going to bed every night, and they are going down on their knees and they are praying to every god and deity that any human across the world believes in, that the DA wins the court case. Even though they are best of enemies with the DA, even though half of them are ex-DA, even though they've been lambasting the DA in public, they were probably praying that they would be saved by the Democratic Alliance court case. And again, when we talk about who are the winners here, we'll get there in a second. We're going to speak further about that. Man, this show is really on. Maybe I should take notes more often. This is flowing coherently and with narrative.
Such an easy edit, let me tell you.
Blessings for you and James. Okay, so there is the potential that the judge in the court case that the DA and EFF have taken will put in an interim relief suspension to stop a VAT increase on the 1st of May. That is plausible. And if the judge does that, based on the arguments that the DA and the EFF representatives have put forward in that case, then potentially we won't have a VAT increase on the 1st of May. But if we don't have a VAT increase on the 1st of May, it's almost certainly because of that court case and not any other spin that any of the parties who voted for this budget are already trying to spin to you, unless something extraordinary happens. And I'm willing to say right now that I will be humble and honest and truthful and fair, as I always try to be, if functions of parliament can thwart the VAT increase before the 1st of May. Maybe Mashaba is right. Maybe they have a grand plan. But I have turned to lots of experts, and the vast majority of them say the best hope for success is that the interim court order thwarts that suspension and that increase.
Which is funny because you talk about how Mashaba is praying, that this court case happens. But I mean, he's doubling down on the fact. I mean, this is a direct quote from him a few minutes ago, right? There will be no VAT increase, not because of any court case that opportunistic parties now seek to falsely claim credit for, all that kind of stuff. Also talking about how there's been no negotiations that they would join the GNU, no promises of positions or anything like that. So it's fascinating to see them double down on some of these.
Maybe they genuinely know something we don't. Maybe they're going to pull off something outrageous. And remember, there's Freedom Day, then there's Workers' Day. They got no more days. It's mad the time. Okay, so who won? Who do we credit with this thwarting of the 0.5% VAT increase? Well, the first people we have to credit is the Democratic Alliance in the first place, because without them, we would have got a disastrous 2% VAT increase way back when the first budget was supposed to happen in February. So those are the first people who we absolutely have to credit. The second people we have to credit are the DA and the economic freedom fighters, because it seems quite clear from the best available sources that their court case has done a significant job at swaying Godongwana and maybe even people within the ANC. And it is possible that Godongwana and people within the ANC, or particularly people within the ANC, were panicking, thinking, how do we get out of this VAT increase and save our own reputations and limit the reputational damage, not the emotional damage? Great throwback to that classic time on TikTok. But the reputational damage of the VAT. And they probably thought, oh, maybe we can twist the court case thwarting us into, if we just before the court case has a ruling, we go, we're not going to do it anymore. And then the ANC gets to go, we were going to get rid of it anyway. And I think that that's what they were already trying to do. And we're going to talk about what Mbalula said at this presser just now in a second. But it's clear that they're trying to throw Treasury under the bus.
Yeah, and I mean, Kunene now has also, I guess, again, doubled down.
From the Patriotic Alliance.
Correct, yes, yeah. He says that the court has not dictated to these parties or the GNU to remove VAT. Therefore, they, the DA in brackets, cannot claim victory, according to Kunene.
But interestingly, we have spoken to a lot of legal experts in the last few weeks about this court case, and quite a few of them said, we don't think it has any reasonable prospect of success. And I'm not going to name the specific legal experts who we spoke to, but I've been reading their tweets in the last few days. And ever since particularly the EFF's representatives' submissions in court, they've all gone, oh, that's interesting. Maybe there is actually a case to be made here. So I think that there is more evidence for the court case swaying, particularly given the timing, the fact that the court case has just been happening now and suddenly Godongwana's had a change of mind. Because, let me be honest, Herman Mashaba, Musi Maimane, Songezo Zibi, if they cared about what you had to say, they would have made this announcement weeks ago. Like, obviously, if they genuinely listened to you and cared about what you had to say and you had any sway over this process, they would have listened to you and made this announcement and change weeks ago when they had ample political time to undo the VAT increase of 0.5%. This is not a win for Action SA or BOSA or what's the others? Rise or anyone else. They are all alive today by the good graces of ANC internal politics and the DA EFF court case. There is no other way to spin this, as hard as they try to gaslight you. Remember the way they were like, there's no VAT increase, and then a few days later, if there is a VAT increase, and then a few days later, we hope there'll be no VAT increase. This is absolutely by the good graces of the DA EFF court case and probably internal battles within the African National Congress.
It's funny, when you posed the question about who won in this scenario, I was going to say that depends on who you ask, because if you're Musi, it's it's Bossa.
We won.
And I mean, the way he tweeted at Helen, basically.
What was that tweet exactly? I had a meltdown about this.
It's something along the lines of, does Helen have FOMO?
Literally. So Bossa posted a picture of the press conference before anybody had sat down. And I thought to myself, Musi probably spent the last 24 hours bribing the set designers, the staff on set to be like, put us in the middle. Put us in the middle, guys. That's all we want. We need to be in the middle. And then, does Helen have FOMO, says Bossa's Twitter account. This is where those who stopped the VAT increase are this morning. Y'all, South Africa's not stupid. You voted for this. Come on. Give me a break. Anyway, will the finance minister resign? So, we just watched Fikile Mbalula absolutely throw Treasury under the bus. He tried to make it seem like the ANC was one of those parties that didn't like the VAT increase and had been engaging with Treasury and engaging with others and learning big lessons and trying to figure out the uncharted waters, and we could have done better. And he said in a very Trumpian way, this budget is a perfect budget without a VAT increase. You can just imagine, this budget is a perfect budget. It's so perfect. I'm terrible at a Trump impression because I honestly don't ever want to do that. But like, it was wild. And then he said, we've taken this back to Treasury. We're engaging with Treasury. We're talking with Treasury. So he's trying to position the ANC outside of this mess, trying to fix the mess caused by Treasury and the finance minister. And again, you'll remember for the last few months, more and more ANC leaks saying that the ANC bigwigs don't like what this VAT budget entails. That's very, very, very much going to be the narrative that you see, is throwing Enoch Godongwana under the bus. Now, will the finance minister resign? Well, if I was him, I would. He probably doesn't want to tolerate any of this. He wanted a 2% VAT increase. He was thwarted. On a hot mic, he dragged the SARS commissioner, Edward Kieswetter. He's pissed off. He's furious at being challenged, furious at being scapegoated, just wants to do his plan. Word on the street is he's not someone who takes feedback well or criticism well. He probably doesn't want to do the 0.5%. And now he's going to be made to eat, I don't know, a ZCC church meeting for Easter's budget of humble pie. He doesn't want to do any of this. And word on the street is that he's actually tried to resign twice already and had his request to resign rejected by the presidency. Now, that's word on the street. It has not been confirmed on the record, but those are the rumors going around. He wasn't even at the briefing. He was not there. This was damage control for the ANC and these other smaller parties, and a look over there, that's the problem. He genuinely may have resigned by the time that we publish this, which will be an hour and a half from the end of the recording. And I know that there's no track record of ANC ministers resigning when they screw up or they're embarrassed or whatever, but this might be it. And remember, there is history with our finance ministers. Tito Mboweni was ready to resign all the time, and he was very open about it. He was like, if you don't like what I'm selling, I'm going to bounce. And I don't think Enoch Godongwana wants to be a part of this. I don't think he's wanted to be a part of this for ages, and he may well jump because he doesn't want to be the scapegoat. And that, again, may work very well with the presidency and the ANC's narrative of saying that guy was the problem. He was the black sheep. Now we've got rid of him. Now we can do the best for South Africa's people.